Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Phonpadith of SOAR Community Network and SOAR Nebula. Mali, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Gresham. It's an honor to be here.
Definitely the honor is all ours, and I'm super excited to have you on. And before we jumped into the interview, I want to read a little bit more about Mali so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And Mali is the CEO of SOAR Community Network and co-founder of SOAR Nebula. She is a TEDx speaker, #1 international bestselling author, certified talent optimization leader, C3 community architect, and builder of compassionate, cohesive, and collaborative communities within growing companies and mission-driven organizations. Her team helps to bring C3 innovative and collaborative teams using proven science, technology, and ongoing training. Mali was chosen as a believed team partner through Values Partnership and the Oprah Winfrey Network and has been nominated for Heroines of Washington D.C. award by the March of Dimes, among many other awards throughout her career. Mali, it's great to have you on the show. Are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am. Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for all the awesome things that you're doing. And to kind of kick everything off, I wanted to rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started, what I call your CEO story.
Oh, how did I get started? Well, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur way, way early on in my life. I came here from Laos when I was 4 years old as a child refugee of war with my family, crossing the Mekong River, living in the refugee camps, and then being sponsored by a local church here in the DC area. And growing up, I just knew, looking around where we lived in DC, Southeast DC, which at the time in the early 80s, if you can recall, if you were even born then, was the murder capital of the world. So it was just not a very good, healthy environment. And I just looked around and I thought to myself, how are we ever going to get out of poverty or fear or just feeling like you don't have enough ever? And so in my mind, I knew that the only way out, at least in this society in the US, was through education and through connections and relationships. So even at 7 years old, I remember writing checks and doing bills for my parents. I knew that I needed to get educated, and I knew that I wanted to eventually own a business, do something that can uplift my family out of our situation. So that seed of entrepreneurship was planted very, very early on. And I just pretty much put my head down, studied really hard, graduated top of my class in high school, ended up with 3 degrees, speaking 4 languages, mostly driven by fear and driven by a desire to create change for my family. I don't regret it, but I did want to be transparent about my motivations, which was really based on fear when I was younger.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm a big believer. I always say like entrepreneurship equals hope. So it definitely sounds like it provided that great opportunity. So I love kind of hearing a little bit about, more about that. But what did you mean by you were kind of motivated by fear? Could you expound a little bit more on that? I would love to hear.
Absolutely. As an adult now, and the work that we do is helping what I call little baby humans inside big people bodies to help them really explore the things that made them behave the way they did. The things that nurtured us, not necessarily what came with us in our nature, but the things that nurtured us to behave a certain way, to believe certain things about ourselves, about our environment. And when I say operating from a place of fear and scarcity drove me and motivated me for that moment in time until beyond college. But then at some point in my life, I realized I didn't want to live that way forever. I didn't want to just constantly be worried and scared that I wouldn't have enough and my family wouldn't be okay. So I started going through a personal development journey, a leadership development journey that really elevated my own thinking and my belief system and challenged myself to really start to work on traumas and fears so that I can operate from a place of abundance and trust and divine trust, just a knowing that everything that has led me here has provided me with so many lessons that I can now look at from a positive standpoint. And so that's what I meant by growing up. I was motivated by fear. Now as an adult, I've learned through a lot of personal development work that I want to operate moving forward from a place of trust, belief, and abundance.
Yeah, I appreciate you for, going, deeper on that, because I think so many times we don't realize the effects that, fear can have on our lives, and the draining, I guess, feeling you have sometimes by constantly feeling like there's not enough and having to kind of work through that. And even if you're reaching and achieving success, sometimes it feels like it's not enough and it doesn't necessarily complete you. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think so many times we're going through that, or we might feel that. And for one, I appreciate you talking about the work that you went through, because I think so many times we think it's a light switch. So once you are in a space, you can get out of that space, but actually doing that work provides kind of light at the end of the tunnel, it sounds.
Yes, the work continues. We are human beings, and when we're human beings, we are flawed. And if you're a religious person, being human beings means that we also sin and we make mistakes and we fumble and we stumble. And you're never going to be the perfect human, but you want to become perfectly imperfect, meaning you accept yourself, you accept
Mhm.
all the broken pieces of you, how hard you've worked to put the pieces together and figure out how to glue it all together. And then over time, those scars do start to heal and they start to fade, but they never leave you. It's the same with healing. It's the same with letting go of trauma to operate from a elevated space. It's a practice. It's not a light switch. It's not one session with the therapist. It's ongoing work. It's creating daily routines, and I would challenge to even use the word rituals, daily rituals that you're completely committed to, so that you can always be present and mindful to ask the question, am I operating as the best version of myself with the tools that I have today, with the capacity that I have today, and permission to be an ever evolving human.
Yeah, and I say so many times, I feel like we forget or sometimes skip over the human aspect of life and even business. We're so kind of go go go, especially in this area, that we sometimes forget that. So I love that you center on that. And you talked about that, because I think that is ultimately, I think, the pillar in a lot of things that we do. If we understand that, then it allows us to kind of treat the individual, have a conversation, address it, and you do what needs to be done to kind of help these organizations and everything succeed. And so I wanted to hear, I guess, a little bit more about your skills, your talents, your tools, the things that you have in your toolkit, and what you do to kind of make that impact and help, people and organizations, grow.
Well, here at the SOAR Community Network, we're so committed to what we call building C3 communities within organizations. And the three C's are developing more compassionate leaders. So that's the first C. Designing cohesive teams, second C. And fostering collaborative cultures. And that's the third C. So it's compassion, cohesion, collaboration. And it's a process, it's a framework which informs a practice. So when organizations reach out to us and hire us, it's not just one workshop that we're going for. It might be the step in the door to really get the leaders to go through this journey of developing themselves from a transformational leader to a transcendent leader. And that's really where we design programs to, again, develop more compassionate, mindful, conscious leaders who look at the whole ecosystem and not just look at what's in it for me, but what's in it for us. And then that framework informs, well, how do we take that information now that we have compassionate leaders who buy into the value set of building these types of ecosystems, and then from there help them to design cohesive teams throughout the business units, throughout the entire organization, which then elevates productivity and engagement, a desire for human beings to come to work and contribute because they know there's something greater than them. Through their roles and responsibilities, they can then also share their gifts and their superpowers. And that makes for a collaborative culture. It doesn't happen overnight. This is a long-term investment. And we have the tool sets using proven science, behavioral insights and assessments. We do ongoing training, and we have multiple consultants and partners. So it's not just us. We operate as a consortium of experts who come in, and depending what the clients need and what the challenges are at hand, we design the right programs to lend itself to building, first designing, then building, implementing, and then maintaining and recalibrating C3
Mhm.
cultures. You don't become a C3 culture and then that's it. People move, new hires come in. you constantly have to be calibrating it. And we empower the internal teams to do that so that they're not relying on us as consultants to come in, year out, so that over time they actually save money on less turnover, more retention and engagement, and less money on consultants, because we also empower the internal staff to do this work.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. I love kind of like, those words, the empowerment piece and of course the three C's. I kind of see them as, I don't know if you would see it this way, but kind of legs of a stool where each of them is so I guess, dependent, so that if you don't have one or one's not in the right place, then of course it can affect the other two. But I love how you also, it sounds like, create that custom strategy so that when you go into these organizations, you can evaluate those three legs of the stool, so to speak, and know how to execute that plan so that they can get to where they want to be.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. When sometimes we go into organizations and their leaders have chosen to hire us because they are compassionate and they want this for their ecosystem. They want this for their culture. They just don't have the capacity, the time, or the resource, or the know-how. So we might come in there and not have to really spend as much time developing the high-level, C-level executives to be compassionate leaders. We do some refining, some fine-tuning, but then it's really about what they need right now. Could be that they don't have cohesive teams, especially with COVID and the remote workforce. It's been a real challenge. So we'll come in and do an analysis and diagnose the whole situation, and then really customize it to meet the needs of that particular growing organization. And our clients typically have, 50 employees up to about 3,000 employees is kind of our sweet spot, because it's really when it's time to build in the foundations of a true, manageable, scalable ecosystem that's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like you said, when you start to build, put those foundational bricks, in place, so to speak, you create that culture, and that culture starts to manifest itself in the employees and the people and the environment. And then, everybody seems like they can become, I guess, a champion or somebody that's in charge of like what the organization is doing. So that's extremely powerful.
Yes. We love to develop internal change agents and
Mhm.
entrepreneurs within organizations using our framework and our tools and methodology. We also love working with small business owners who may not even have a lot of employees yet. So that's why we built SOAR Nebula, for those leaders who are either entrepreneurial and really want to develop themselves into more transformational, compassionate, transcendent leaders so they can take that information back to their organization, or entrepreneurs who might have a small team of 2, 3, 5, 25 employees, but they don't really have a place to go to develop themselves, not just from the business aspect, but from a leadership standpoint. Because a lot of the organizations out there who support or create cohorts for CEOs or executives typically require you to be, making X number of millions already and have X number of employees. So there's a special place, a lane, for those organizations or small business owners, and also nonprofit leaders who may have a smaller team, that they can come to SOAR Nebula, which is a membership resource hub, and really start to understand what it means for them as a leader to be transcendent leaders, and to also start to walk them through building their own ecosystem for C3, even in the early phases of their growth within the organization. So we have that consultation where we go into organizations that have 50 employees or more, but we also built a hub for those that are not quite there, but still need to be developed as leaders so that they can grow and scale their businesses and organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. And having, gone to one of the events is a phenomenal organization. I love everything, you've been able to do to build and grow that. And I think, planting those seeds, as we kind of talked about, not only helps out these organizations, but it has that ripple effect that helps out the communities, helps out the people within the community. So I love, everything that you've been able to kind of build and grow. And so would you consider that to be what I like to call your secret sauce, what I say kind of sets you apart and makes you unique? It could be yourself or the organizations, but what do you feel is your secret sauce? Is that ability to be able to kind of see the forest for the trees and have that knowledge and ability to be able to translate that to so many different people?
I would say our secret sauce is that we put people first. Our core values at the SOAR Community Network is, one, do everything with love. And we are unapologetic about that. So one of our secret sauces is that everything is based on love and coming from a place of love. So even when we have our ideations or masterminds, we share with our members that the code of conduct is, yes, you can offer suggestions and even critiques, but be mindful that it must come from a place of love. So that's the first core value for us, is operate from a place of love always. Second, it must be a win for all involved. If you're joining our community or you're hiring us to engage, yes, we win, but how do you win? What are we offering to you that's going to make sure that you drive those business results while taking care of your people and seeing them as a whole human? So it's not just about making people feel good. We still want you to drive your results, your business results, so you can be profitable, so you can create greater impact in society. So it has to be a win for all. And the third is not just operating from a place of love, a win for all, but we have to create some type of positive impact in our communities and societies. So that's our secret sauce. Everything we do must map back to those non-negotiable set of core values. Are we operating from a place of love and challenging others to do the same? Is it a win for all involved? And do we create impact in communities, in organizations, for society?
Nice. I love and appreciate that, just because, so many times when you're trying to make decisions, whether to do this or not to do this, when you have those core values, those filters, so to speak, it allows you to understand, is this in alignment with our core, principles of why we were founded, what we're standing for. And I think that when you have that and understand that and can definitely, of course, articulate that, it helps yourself, but also all the members of the organization, the people that you work with, be on the same page. So
Yes.
definitely appreciate that. And
It helps you to say no too. It helps you
exactly.
to say
That
no
was
to
my
all
polite
the
way to saying
projects.
that. Exactly. Which is definitely a superpower for sure. And so I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
I have been meditating every day. Get up at 6:15 in the morning and meditate every single day. That has been really helpful because we, as humans, carry so much with us. We're constantly having thoughts, thousands of them roaming through our minds on a daily basis. And being able to reset on a daily basis has really helped me to ground myself every morning. So whatever bad dream I had the night before, whatever horrible day or incident may have occurred the day before, when I get up in the morning and I become present to my organs, to the physical me, as well as connect to that higher level me, it does reshape my morning. There is a quote, and I don't remember who said this, but I read many years ago that if we have an opportunity to get up in the morning and draw in a breath, we get to start all over again. Mm-hmm. And that's what my daily meditation has done for me. So call it what you will. You can call it meditation. You can call it your daily prayer. I also practice daily EFT, emotional freedom technique tapping. The hack is be intentional about who you're going to show up as every morning. Who do you want to be? And in order for you to really answer that question, you've got to create an experience, a moment where you go deep within you and remember who you are and remember your ripple effect.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I love that word, creating, or that phrase, creating that experience, because I think so many times we can get caught in the whirlwind of life and definitely of business, where things are happening and we feel like we can't find that grounding. But I love that kind of regular practice, that experience on a regular basis to be present, to be aware, and to do that in the way that allow you to understand like what's going on, but of course be able to kind of find that light, I guess you could say, that North Star that sometimes we find difficulty in finding.
Yes, and and a lot of people have not even gone through an actual formal process, and it doesn't have to be, from an Ivy League school. It can be online, or it can be reading a book and taking down notes, but really gifting yourself with the opportunity to map, what is my North Star? What motivates me? Some of the strategic work that we do, and we call it our purpose mapping or strategic mapping, but at a soul level. Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about North Star. We talk very much about motivating why, Because if you can't articulate and tell your own hero's journey of why you are choosing this particular path or career or project or initiative to move forward with, then it's going to be really hard for you to show up as an authentic, from an authentic place as to what led you to launch this business or build this product. It comes from your personal journey. It's not borrowed content from another person in your industry that's doing well. It has to be born from you, your life experiences that led you to want to do this work and leave this legacy behind.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like and just as you were saying, it's so important to kind of create that space, create that opportunity for that to at least do that evaluation on, especially on a regular basis. Because even I guess sometimes if we know like our North Star with life, sometimes we can get off kilter and not be aware of it. So that's why I love the hack, because it's constantly reminding us of creating that space so that we can kind of flesh things out and have that breath and start anew each day. When we know that we can do that, it gives us that power and that opportunity to kind of recalibrate, as you said well earlier.
Well, and I will also say, Gresham, that it's also permission for those that are listening, your audience, to understand that some people came here knowing what their North Star is, and it never moves. It never changes. Others are going to be informed through their life experiences, their pains, their traumas, their triumphs, what their North Star ought to be. Because sometimes we believe our North Star has to be this because perhaps it was planted inside of us from outside influences, but it wasn't born from what we came here to do. And so sometimes that can be really hard to distinguish. And a lot of people go through their whole lives thinking that that's their North Star because everyone told them it ought to be. And then over time, they realize within their body and their psyche and their mental capacity, something's not right. Something is not in flow. Is this really my path? And so, I don't want to discourage those in your audience that if they don't know yet what it truly is, like what their ultimate purpose is in life. I don't believe there's one purpose anyway. There's an overarching theme, and that theme is the stuff that helps inform your vision, mission, values, and your North Star. But if you haven't figured it out yet, that's okay. Sometimes it is about life informing you, giving you more opportunities to explore what is it that lights you up. And life offers sometimes the ultimate purpose. So it's not like you 5 years old, you know what you want and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we have a lot more peace and understanding that it's the journey, rather than sometimes the destination that provides the biggest gift, I think we can sometimes be present and kind of going through that process. And so would you consider that to be what I like to call a CEO nugget, which is kind of a word of wisdom or piece of advice? It's something you might, tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
The nugget that I have, if I were to tell a client and also to tell myself, is if I knew that everything is as it should be, or it would be something else, I would have had a lot more peace in my journey. I would have had a lot more self-compassion and kindness toward myself when I stumbled and make mistakes. Instead of blaming myself or playing the victim, I would have really understood that everything was happening for me, not against me. Everything was gifting me with more opportunities to flex my muscle, to build my stamina, to learn how the heart can rebuild after it breaks. So if I knew what I know now, having lived on this planet for 4 decades now, and I could go back in time, I would have been a lot more kind to myself. I would have made more clear mistakes, and I would have operated more from a place of love and acceptance for myself. Which then would spread to how I treated others in my life path. So that's a big nugget that I would like to share. Everything is as it should be, or it would be something else.
Yeah, that's definitely a big nugget. I might even call that a mountain for sure, because that's such, great knowledge and information. And I think, especially like during this past year, I repeat to myself, giving yourself grace, because I think even, we can sometimes be our hardest and toughest critics to ourselves. And if we kind of recognize that and we appreciate that, what's happening is happening for you, it's not happening to you, then it gives us that reframing so that we understand that we can continue to kind of move forward and we are exactly where we should be. So that won't pull us away from, being exactly what we're in alignment with what it is that we're doing. So truly, Appreciate that. And I wanted to ask you now my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So, Malie, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Being a CEO to me means learning how to let everybody else in. As a natural cultivator for me is actively listening, which can often be hard when you're a visionary and you have big goals and big dreams and you see the pieces and you just go after it. But what I've learned about being a CEO is, yes, we must execute and we must make those big dreams happen, but we can't do it alone. And so as being a CEO means actively listening for everybody's opinions, and then also being courageous enough to make the final decision, but to pause for a moment and realize that you're not the smartest person in the room. There are so many, in fact, you should be hiring people who are smarter than you. You are supposed to be the biggest ambassador for your organization or for your brand, but you don't have to be the smartest person doing the work all the time. You want to empower your superhumans within your organization to do the thing, to take ownership of what our ultimate impact is. So that's for me, that's what I've learned, to really build community and to know my role, which is to inspire and motivate and to let people do the stuff they love to do and that they do really well.
Absolutely. Sometimes the best thing that we can do as leaders is getting the right people in the right place and kind of getting out of their way and providing that ambassadorship, as you said so well, and motivating and inspiring them is some of the things that we have to make sure that we juggle and do. So truly appreciate that definition. And I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is just pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things that you're working on.
I just want to say one thing is, if you are a human being, you are a leader. You are impacting someone else's life just by your existence. So most of the time, depending on what your role at work is, it doesn't matter. That doesn't define your leadership impact. So it doesn't matter what job you're doing, you are a leader. My father was a janitor, and he was one of the most favorite people in his building because he always led from a place of love. So that motivation, that inspiration didn't matter that he was holding a mop. He was being this beautiful soul and looking at life from a positive standpoint, and he motivated and inspired folks who made 10 times what he made. So I want to make sure that people understand that they are leading, and to own that leadership and to develop yourself as a leader, become that transcendent, compassionate leader, because you will create great impact and you will create great legacy. How do you reach me? You can Google my name. You can also Google SOAR Community Network, and you'll be able to find me on all those platforms, as well as our company. You can find us on all the social media platforms. The best one is SOAR, SOAR, communitynetwork.com. That's our website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Malie. We will have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, so that everybody can get a hold of with you and find out about all the awesome things you're doing. I love that last piece because I think so many times we can get so caught up in, the amount of money that we're making or the amount of revenue that we generated or our titles in terms of how we're leading. But I think that we understand that we can create that ripple effect no matter what our title is, no matter who we are and what we're doing. We all have gifts. We all have abilities that can create that positive impact in the world. Then it gives us a lot more ownership, not just of ourselves, but of the world that we live in. So I appreciate you so much for providing all these tools and leadership, information for leaders to really soar as they're able to. So thank you so much for taking some time out. And I appreciate you. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity, Gresham. Thank you so much.